Welcome back to Joe's Stunner Boxing. I hope you're having a good week. A few people, actually more than a few people, every few days, every week, I get at least a few people saying to me, "Why do you hate Gareth A Davies?" Because, I make fun of him, take the piss, so to speak. But look, let's get the vernacular right first of all. Okay, I don't hate him. I think he's a ridiculous figure, but I certainly don't hate the man. I've never met him. For all I know, we might get on well. I don't know. But I do, like I say, I do regard him as a kind of an absurd figure. And the reason is, well, there are several reasons. Let me start at the beginning, because I had never heard of this man until I was watching, this was several years ago, I watched an IFL interview with Eddie Hearn in Eddie Hearn's, so-called back garden, which looks like it's the size of a bloody football field. It probably is. And I was watching this interview with Eddie, and in the background there was a guy, like in the distance, sort of pottering about, and I thought, oh, maybe that's Eddie's gardener or something. I don't know. And this guy sort of, carried on pottering around, but he's getting closer, closer, closer. And then suddenly he was virtually on top of, or like right behind Eddie. I thought, what's going on here? And then the guy goes, oh, sorry, Eddie, I didn't realise you were being interviewed by Coogan. I thought, who the fuck's this geezer? And it turned out to be none other than Gareth A Davies. And he sort of interrupted the interview, and I'm thinking, okay. But what was ridiculous was the fact that he was pretending he didn't realise Eddie was being interviewed, and he just happened to sort of bump into him. Oh, hello, Eddie, bumped into you. Didn't realise you were being interviewed. No, you knew all along. You just wanted to get in on the act, And then I carried on watching interviews, not just with Eddie, but with boxers. And Gareth would interrupt. He'd actually, he wasn't pretending that they weren't being interviewed. He'd just butt in. And I thought, anyway, eventually I knew who this guy was, Gareth A Davies, who apparently is a journalist. Well, he's supposed to be a journalist anyway. And he he has a column, I believe, in the Telegraph with that, bastion of working class reading matter. And he does his thing. I've never read his column in the Telegraph. I'm really not interested in what he's got to say about boxing or anything else. But he's sort of obviously realised that if you get online on YouTube and so on, that you can actually become a bit of a face, like within the boxing community. And he obviously thought, okay, all the others are doing it, I'm going to do this, because lots of people who trained as journalists, I'm reluctant to call some of them journalists, but they actually do they're actually become quite famous, quite renowned, because they're on YouTube, and they get interviewed by the likes of Coogan and Boxing Social and all sorts of other people. So in a sense they've become very minor celebrities. But for Gareth, this must have been the appeal, because he's gone full out to become a sort of cult boxing figure online. And the way that he's done this is to be, first of all, an absolute sycophant to certain fighters and their camps, but also to try and project this image that he is a cool guy, because he wears the tinted shades and he's got the big long hair, and very often if you look at the thumbnails on his media outlets, and he also smokes a cigar. Does he smoke a cigar? Or am I imagining this? If he doesn't smoke a cigar, he should smoke a cigar, because that would sort of complete the sort of subconscious, inadvertent Jimmy Savile image that he's cultivated. A lot of people have said he looks like a sort of pound shot Bono. which is actually quite accurate. But I've always thought of him as you know, like subconsciously picking up on this creator sort of Jimmy Savile look. If you know who Jimmy Savile is, I don't know why you don't know who he is, but go and Google him and you'll see that it's a horror story. By the way, digressing, I'm terribly digressing here, but there is a dramatisation, extremely good dramatisation about Jimmy Savile, with Steve Coogan, the comedian, playing Jimmy Savile, and he is absolutely stunning. And if you're older like me and you know who Jimmy Savile is, and you watch these shows like Jim Will Fix It and Top of the Pops, you will. The guy was a piece of furniture in the 1970s and 80s. You know, in your front room, because he was always on telly, and he was, you know, everyone knew who he was, and he was highly thought of, you know, renowned. But watch that. It's called The Reckoning, and it's got Steve Coogan as Jimmy Savile. It's absolutely brilliant. I mean, really fantastic television. And Coogan deserves some sort of, I don't know, some sort of BAFTA or some shit like that. But anyway, you probably won't get it because he always slags off the mainstream media. But getting back to the mainstream media, let's bring this back to Mr. Gareth A Davies. Yeah, like I say, he has cultivated this rather preposterous image of being a cool guy. You know, he drinks a lot. Now I know people who have had dealings with Gareth, and he does drink a lot. Believe me, he drinks a lot and smokes. He does smoke. Yeah, he does have a cigar, doesn't he? I'm not imagining that, surely. Yeah. All right. Anyway, whatever. But the point is, he is this ridiculous figure because he projects this image of a cool guy, you know, a sort of hey, I'm a journalist, you know, I'm a like a sort of, you know, Hunter S. Thompson figure or something like that. A gonzo journalist, you know. But he's ridiculous. He's ridiculous because, I mean, the obvious example is Tyson Fury and the whole Fury camp, and. He on TalkSport, because he appears a lot on TalkSport, he has been nothing but an absolute sycophant. I was going to use a less polite phrase there, but we'll stick with sycophancy. He has been a complete sycophant to the Furies. It's embarrassing, and there is nothing sort of objective about this guy at all. He is purely a self-serving, absurd, faux journalist, pseudo-journalist. He's simply, the fact that he has never criticised Tyson Fury. I've never ever seen an interview or a panel with him on where he's criticised Fury. He treads on eggshells with Tyson Fury and John Fury and all of that crew, who are not receptive to any kind of constructive criticism, to any kind of awkward questioning. You have to be an absolute devotee of the Fury brand. Otherwise, you're out. They throw you out. They just go crazy and they throw you out, which is absurd in itself. But Davis walks on eggshells around them, which is why he's still got access to them. I think TalkSport have been banned, haven't they, by Fury's crew. Simon Jordan, why has he been banned? Because he's said, you know, mildly critical things of Fury, but I thought he got on really well with Frank Warren. And he did get in. I've seen interviews with him, and he's all been quite pally with Frank Warren, and Warren is Fury's promoter, British promoter anyway. So I don't know why he's been banned, but Gareth hasn't. And even though he works for TalkSport, he can get in a different way because he works for the Telegraph, so he can get his media accreditation that way. But yeah, he is a ridiculous figure. He's not a real journalist. The idea of journalism is that you ask the awkward questions. You ask people the questions that the public want, and it's not a case of making friends. It's not a case of, you know, letting people off the hook just for your own personal gain. Davis does none of that. Does none of that. He is purely. He wants to be a sort of. I don't know. It's kind of like Steve Bunce is another one. I mean, Steve Bunce is extremely knowledgeable about boxing. Gareth A Davies isn't. He knows enough to get by. He knows enough to sort of be to call himself a boxing journalist, even though he isn't really. But Steve Bunce is more of a historian, or at the very least, if he's not a historian, he's extremely knowledgeable about boxing going way, way back. Gareth A Davies is, to be honest with you, a charlatan. Someone who knows a bit, someone who might hear things about the modern game, but if you sat him down and had a proper discussion with him about boxing history, I don't consider myself an expert, but I do know quite a bit about boxing history because I've spent the last 40 whatever years reading about it. Someone like me or many others who have done that would stand Gareth A Davies on his head in terms of discussing boxing. But yeah, this is why I just find the guy to be a comedic figure. I don't hate him. To be honest, I don't even have contempt for him. I have a lot of pity, because it seems to me that if you're that desperate to be a figure of some notability, that you don't really know yourself. There's a sort of, he's like a puppy dog, running after people, and it seems to me it kind of lacks a bit of dignity, if I'm being honest. It lacks a bit of well, I don't know what the word is. I'm trying to find the right words, but he seems to be, it lacks a bit of dignity, a bit of self-respect, I suppose. But I think he's rather a sad figure, actually, to be honest with you. I don't hate him. I don't hate Gareth. I make fun of him, take the piss and all the rest of it, because what can you do with someone else like that? They're putting themselves out there. There are lots of people I don't like, or I wouldn't take the piss out of them, because it's just like, well, I don't particularly care for that person. But other people say, well, I like him or her because of blah, blah, blah. Okay, but I've never met a boxing fan who has respect for Gareth A Davies. And that's what I was trying to say a moment ago. He seems to lack respect. He seems to lack self-respect. He is that puppy dog bouncing around, panting, give me, pet me, look at me, jumping on the sofa and him. No, I can't be doing with a man. So yeah. For those of you that many people have asked me, why don't you like Gareth A Davies? By the way, when they ask me that, they don't like Gareth A Davies either. But those who've asked me, there's a off the cuff explanation which I hope answers your question. But yeah, all right. Well, yeah. Comments below if you've got any. What do you think of Gareth? Good old Gareth. Leave your comments below. I'm going to have a laugh, read them. Please make them as funny as possible. And subscribe to the channel if you do. If you hit the like button, I'd appreciate that. And the hit all the buttons you can see. But subscribe to the channel. Yeah, I really appreciate you watching the videos. It's always good fun making them. And yeah, I'm looking forward to reading your comments. And bye bye for now. Oh, and love from Gareth as well.